page of the Wall Street Journal today that says that Musharraf is defiant in his return bid, and it's also getting a lot of attention, as you can imagine, in the Pakistani press. The Nation, for instance, says that, well, he's back in the line of fire, and the former president, he said that he's come back to save the country despite these threats on his life. But there's an interesting comment piece in The Independent by Omar Warshai, where he takes a look at this risk that he's taking, and it says that he wants another crack at power, but he's really putting himself into danger with this return, and that's the last thing that Pakistan needs, is another assassination during another election. Is this dictator's vanity worth the risk of yet another assassination? That's the question that The Independent asks, and points out that, well, he ruled the country for 9 years, and it wasn't particularly a memorable period for a lot of people who were still in Pakistan.
Of course, the other big story in the papers today is the situation in Cyprus. How have the papers been reacting to that? They had time to?
Well, it's just starting. There's a cartoon in the China Daily, which represents how a lot of papers are reacting to this deal. And you see that it's somewhat of a poisoned gift. You see a drawing there of Cyprus drowning. The EU is throwing it a lifebuoy that's in the form of a rescue package. But as you can see, there's a little weight that's attached to that lifebuoy in the form of this tax deposit. So proving that's quite counterproductive, perhaps not the right solution. The Guardian compares Cyprus, it calls it a crisis island, and it looks back in history and how history can rhyme, as it says. And it says that back in the summer of 1783, well, there was an eruption on another island at the edge of Europe that, well, triggered chaos for the entire continent, and that was a volcano eruption, a volcano called Laki in Iceland. Now, Laki sounds a lot like Lakey, which is the name of one of the banks that's at the heart of this crisis. Yeah. And the Guardian says that, well, just like in 1783, well, once again, a disaster on a tiny island is, well, it has the whole world transfixed. And it says that this might be a tiny island, but its ripple effects from this crisis, well, we're going to hear a lot about them in the next years to come.
More ripples going on in the international press over the mysterious death, particularly in the British press here, of the Russian tycoon Boris Berezovsky.
That's right. Now, the reasons for his death remain very mysterious, and The Independent takes a closer look at just who he is and traces back over his career, because he was once very prominent in Russia. He was a self-made billionaire. He was instrumental in the rise to power of Vladimir Putin, but he fell out with Putin and then experienced a spectacular fall from grace. And as you can see there in The Independent, it points out, well, that he was a lone oligarch who poisoned Britain's relations with Russia, because in Britain he was seen as being an asylum seeker, but in Russia he was seen as a crook who fled from London with his, quote, ill-gotten gains. The Independent also points out that, well, in Russia there's not much sympathy for his death. He was often portrayed as a villain in the Russian media, and politicians and public figures have shed few tears over his death.
Now, the police are still investigating the cause of death, aren't they? But is The Guardian you've pulled out looking at other puzzling deaths of Russian exiles in the UK? That's
right. It's quite a worrying trend. And it takes a look at 4 other cases here in The Guardian. Just to name 2, there's Alexander Litvinenko, so the former FSB agent who died after his tea was poisoned. He died of radiation poisoning. There was also recently Alexander Perepilichny, who he died while he was jogging, and it was then reported that he was helping police investigate corruption allegations in Russia.
And finally, Bill Gates, something slightly different. He's trying to tackle the spread of STDs by making condoms not more available, but more comfortable.
That's right. Now, this is not a joke. This is the Bill
it's not April the 1st yet.
and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're offering $100,000 to design the next generation of condoms. So their idea is that latex condoms may be 85% effective at preventing unwanted pregnancies and the spread of most STDs, but they're not very comfortable. They don't feel good, as says this article in GAWKER. Now, if they felt better, well, guys maybe wouldn't hesitate so much to wear them. And don't worry, ladies, because the Gates also want to revolutionize the female condom, which is seen as being expensive and complicated to use. So if you feel inspired, go to grandchallenges.org, and the whole wide world will thank you a lot.
Fluffy ones. Is that the answer? I don't know. Thanks very much, Florence VILLEMINOT, with the international papers here on France 24. Now, the first few hours were peaceful, but then about 100 youths tried to push past police barriers